Good evening and welcome to the Dana Point City Council meeting of Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. I'll now call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All members of the City Council are present.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Attorney, is there a need for a closed session?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have a conference with legal counsel this evening as a result of anticipated litigation due to the significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. We have one case to discuss. We also have a conference with legal counsel as a result of existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. That is the matter of the City of Dana Point versus Seaside Inn. Kathy, was there an updated agenda with the case that we were doing the settlement agreement on?
I'm not sure which ones you're referring to.
I apologize. My copy of the agenda was the older one. We also have a second matter under conference with legal counsel due to existing litigation. That's City of Dana Point versus Changes in Recovery, Orange County Superior Court case number 302019010598862. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. So with that, we are in recess until 6 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the Dana Point City Council meeting of October 6th, 2020. We will now reconvene our meeting. We'll start tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Council Member Paul Wyatt.
Stand and place your right hand over your heart. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. There is no invocation tonight, which brings us to presentations and proclamations. We do have a proclamation tonight, which I'm going to read regarding Orange County Fire Authority Fire Prevention Week. And I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to invite our representative on the OCFA to join me down in the well, and I will read the proclamation and present it to him. So, Councilman Miller, if you would. If we're near each other, it's a good idea. Okay, good evening. So as I said, it is Fire Prevention Week, and we have a proclamation here on behalf of the city that I'd like to present to our OCFA member and representative, Councilman Miller, so I will read it. Whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are where people are at greatest risk from fire, and whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, where fire departments responded to more than 173,000 annually between 2013 and 2017. Whereas 2 of every 5 home fires start in the kitchen, with 31% of these fires resulting from unattended cooking. And whereas over the past year, there have been 85 cooking fires across Orange County, 17 of which started from an oven. Whereas Orange County residents should stay in the kitchen when frying food on the stovetop, keep a 3-foot kid-free zone around cooking areas, and keep anything that can catch fire away from stovetops. And whereas Orange County residents are responsive to public education and outreach measures and can take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme, Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, effectively serves to remind us to stay alert and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fires. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Dana Point does hereby declare October 4th through October 10th, 2020 as Fire Prevention Week, and urges residents to check their kitchens for fire hazards and use safe cooking practices, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Orange County Fire Authority during Fire Prevention Week 2020, dated the 6th day of October 2020 by Richard A. Vixoric, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Vixoric. Well, thank you, Mayor Vixoric. As somebody who's been to culinary school, fire is always a big issue in the kitchen. It's something we don't talk about a lot, but if you see fire suppression in a commercial kitchen, you'll understand how serious it really is. And the two big fires I can remember in Dana Point recently were both in commercial kitchens. And think about how often those kitchens are clean. People are there, they're paying attention to it. They happen quickly. You turn your back for a second, and your grease has caught fire, and the fire's on, and very difficult to put out. So please be aware, listen to what the suggestions were here. If you have especially a gas burning stove, do not walk away from that if you have anything on it. So please be careful. Thank you, Mayor Vixoric and the City of Dana Point for this proclamation for OCFA. I'll make sure they get it.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the reading of ordinance titles. However, before we do that, at the request of staff, we are going to be pulling item number 13 tonight, which will relieve you of reading that ordinance, Madam Clerk. But at this time, I'll now ask you if you have any other ordinance titles to read.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have one ordinance title to read. It is a second reading and adoption of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Dana Point, California, amending Chapter 5.20 of the Dana Point Municipal Code. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine, and all will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, the public, or staff request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Are there any items to be removed by the public, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Madam City Manager, are there any items to be removed by staff?
Not tonight, thank you.
And are there any items to be removed by council? Seeing none, I will move the recommended actions for the consent calendar.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Which brings us to the public comments section of the agenda. Okay. There will be a 3-minute time limit per person and an overall time limit of 30 minutes for the public comments portion of the agenda. At my discretion, the balance of public comments will be heard after the new business portion of the agenda. All comments are to be directed to the City Council and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. State law prohibits the City Council from taking action on a specific item unless it appears on the posted agenda. We are still in a sort of hybrid form of our meetings, which means that we may have comments in person, and we may have them emailed to us, which will be read. So I will first ask, Madam Clerk, do we have any in-person public comments?
No, Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay, very well. Do we have any public comments that have been emailed to us?
Yes, we have a substantial amount of public comments, and if Shayna Sharkey, my deputy city clerk, and I could split them up, that would be wonderful.
That sounds good. Please read those comments to us. We're starting now at 6:10.
All right, this is from Steve Didier. I am a new resident and property owner on El Contento Drive. I currently work for the city of Carlsbad, and in 2015 to 16, I led a team of city staff in the development of Carlsbad short-term rental vacation ordinance and policies. I am very familiar with the issues facing Dana Point and would like to share my observations and recommendations in my new capacity as a Dana Point property owner and resident. There seems to be major misconceptions regarding the California Coastal Commission's authority regarding STRs in Dana Point. I've heard several council members and planning commissioners comment that the CCC is breathing down our necks or requiring an STR program citywide. That is not accurate. Please read the CCC's letter to the city dated December 6, 2016, that was included as the very last attachment to the STR packet from the 9/28 Planning Commission meeting. The CCC provided the city guidelines only, no requirements. The CCC's authority is limited to the coastal zone, and their only expectation is that any STR program be consistent with the city's local coastal plan. Read the letter. I believe Dana Point could make strong argument to ban STRs entirely, as there are a myriad opportunities already for the public to access coastal resources given the existing and coming hotels, harbor facilities, and campgrounds. This is not Malibu or Laguna Beach, where private homes and properties control the coast. If there is concern regarding the CCC, they have already expressed that a homestay program inside the coastal zone only is consistent with the LCP. I've quickly learned that the residents of Dana Point are very involved. I understand the history of STRs in Dana Point previously resulted in a referendum because residents feel they were not heard. The last page in the CCC's letter provides significant guidance on program options that could help shape a program acceptable to the community as a whole and keep you from another referendum. I encourage the Planning Commission Subcommittee to engage a truly open and transparent community participation process to discuss the available options presented in the CCC's letter. They need to hear all sides and perspectives in their consideration of any pilot program. I would be happy to share my experience and background with the Planning Commission Subcommittee in any open public forum or dialogue they establish to discuss options for development of an STR program. I look forward to participating and thank you for your time. The next is Tony Nelson, Capistrano Beach. Like most residents, our home is our most valuable asset. My husband and I purchased our home in Capistrano Beach expecting that the city would respect and retain our residential zoning and that we would continue to have long-term neighbors. It never crossed our minds that we instead could end up with a steady stream of tourists next door, patronizing a commercial mini hotel. Your so-called public workshop is a sham. It is already clear that all 5 commission members are in favor of investor-owned STRs and are bending over backwards to accommodate them. If the city council truly wanted public participation, you should have sent notices to all residents since all of our zoning will be affected. Instead, you directly contacted only 10 people called STR interested parties. 10. No effort was made to contact the 4,000 plus citizens who signed the referendum. Surely they are very interested parties. Most Dana Point residents will likely remain in the dark until STRs start showing up in the neighborhoods, and the city will have cover for having run so-called public workshops during a pandemic. It is appalling that you are holding workshops during a time when people who are passionate about this issue cannot participate without risking their health. It's even worse that only public comments on the Planning Commission record are from STR owners, while opponents' comments are not even read, let alone referenced in the video. Most property owners whose quality of life and property values will be seriously affected will have no idea STRs are coming until it's too late. Was that the intention of sneaking this in during a pandemic? 3 councilmen who 4/5 of us can neither vote nor recall our intent on changing residential zoning in Dana Point. Why don't the 3 of you simply design the ordinance you want? You ignored your own resident survey and then mandated that residents will not be allowed to vote on the resulting ordinance. So why the charade of pretending our opinions matter? Unlike much of Dana Point, which is safely ensconced in HOAs, the people in the minority districts of Capo Beach and the Lantern District are sitting ducks. When a majority enforces its will against a minority that has no recourse against them, we have lost democracy and have instead created something more akin to tyranny. This is another example of the majority's shameful disregard for the people they are sworn to represent. The next is Barbara Wilson, Dana Point resident. This meeting is about a pilot program for short-term rentals. Actually, we have had a pilot program for the past 7 years. This has resulted in hundreds of complaints from neighbors about noise, parking problems, litter, and safety concerns, not to mention compromised enjoyment of their homes. The city has not provided adequate code enforcement of the licensed vacation rentals, but over the last 3 years, the proliferation of 450 illegal ones. Neighbors of these vacation rentals have nowhere to turn but to the police, who many times take no action, and after 9 to 5 weekdays, city employees cannot be contacted. Transient occupancy tax from STRs have been a rationale for expanding them. In the last 3 years, $122,000 in unpaid TOTs and fines have been levied, and 80% of those have not been collected. Hotels have been the city's largest source of TOT, and to diminish their business would greatly reduce the income to the city. At a time when the city coffers are facing a $5 million shortfall, it would be impossible to hire enough staff to respond to complaints and sufficiently identify illegal STRs. The argument that the California Coastal Commission has mandated a short-term rental policy that requires investor-owned STRs rather than a hosted option where a homeowner may rent out space in their home as they remain in the residence is false. The hosted option has received a nod from the commission and is the program that is operating in LA, Santa Monica, Laguna Beach, Santa Barbara, and many cities throughout our state and the nation. The need to keep residential areas residential and preserve housing for renters is recognized by the vast majority of Dana Point residents, as evidenced by the over 4,000 signatures received overturning the last city STR ordinance. Residents do not want to live next door to a mini hotel. The fact that any program collecting TOT makes it a business. At the very least, residents should have a vote on any ordinance that makes change to their residential zoning and not be denied input by scheduling a workshop without adequate notice during a pandemic. The next is from Sandy Iverson, Capistrano Beach. I can't believe we're going through this STR controversy again, and what a terrible timing. Isn't COVID bad enough that the city is choosing this moment to get into a long, contentious battle over short-term rentals? Many people have health issues, and many are struggling to pay rents and mortgages and trying to keep their businesses afloat. We really don't need this now or possibly ever. City after city is trying to curb STR activity because their residents don't want them. So why is Dana Point thinking this is a great time to go in the opposite direction and expand them? I get that the city is facing a $9 million shortfall in TOT revenue, but is this the time to further insult our bread and butter hotel industry by undertaking a program to directly compete with them? And did you miss the news that California is facing a huge housing shortage? 40% of Dana Point residents live in residential housing. What happens to housing stock when you open the door to investors to buy up homes and rent them to a steady stream of tourists? Are you okay with people being evicted so that investors can make more money by creating many hotels in our neighborhood? This is not the way to plug the budget hole. Supporting local hotels and encouraging them to get back on their feet. Cut costs where necessary and look for inefficiencies. How much was really earned from STRs after you count the extra policing, code enforcement, host compliance, and administrative costs? How do you quantify the strife this causes and the effect on our quality of life, or even our property values when you put commercial businesses in our neighborhoods? How fair is it that councilmen from districts 1, 2, and 3 impose their will on districts 4 and 5, where 73% of STRs are located? What about the fairness of respecting the rules of HOAs that prohibit STRs but declaring open season on the residential zoning rules for the rest of us? Are you creating two classes of residents in Dana Point? Residents didn't buy their homes expecting the city to ever allow retail businesses or hotels next door. Forget the workshops, you're just going to waste more money putting them on. Look at the referendum and at the recent survey. We already know residents do not want full-time mini hotels next door. Allow commercial uses in commercial areas. Open STRs in commercial and mixed-use areas, and quit picking on struggling homeowners. The next is from Alan Bell, Capistrano Beach. I am writing to you because I cannot risk my health by attending this meeting in person, and the Planning Commission won't even read our letters into the record. You are holding public workshops for the purpose of changing my residential zoning without my permission. You are holding these workshops during a pandemic. You failed to send a notice to every person affected by this zoning change. That speaks volumes. Does the city hope to minimize opposition and sneak through without us noticing? You obviously didn't hear us when 4,000 residents signed a referendum overturning the city's last attempt to shove STRs down our throats. And more recently, the 3 main majority didn't read the city's own survey. Residents were okay with homestay STRs, but were clearly opposed to those owned by investors. Instead, our council majority blithely insisted that the pilot program must include investor-owned STRs. Never mind that 72% of current short-term rentals are owned by investors and that 64% of owners don't even live in Dana Point. Let's be sure to please those investors, never mind actual residents. They don't matter as much as out-of-town investors. You've already had a pilot program for 7 years now. You already know most residents don't like STRs next door, and you already know that despite regulations that sound tough on paper, the city cannot enforce them adequately. It does not shut down illegal STRs effectively and does not even collect its own penalties. Here's the bottom line. We bought residential homes. We don't want commercial businesses next door, and that includes hotels. We don't care how well you regulate them because even a well-run hotel is still a hotel. And when the hotel next door has no front desk to complain to when the party starts at 2 a.m., it's not a neighbor, it's a nuisance. We want residential uses next door. Short-term rentals are businesses. They belong in mixed use or commercial areas, not our neighborhoods. So stop it already. We didn't want them 4 years ago, and we don't want them now. Do we have to circulate recall petitions along with the next referendum before you hear us? The next is from Paula Page. Excuse me. I am a retired realtor and I am totally against short-term rentals in residential communities because those people renting them are on vacation and in party mode. They become a nuisance to their neighbors with their loud parties and no restraint. They bring down property values. Hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, and timeshares are your short-term rentals. Dana Point is currently a unique, classy community, and I would like it to stay that way. We're going to have the Waldorf Astoria join us, which will definitely help our levels of class. Why would you want to allow short-term rentals, which would take our town in the opposite direction? It has come to my attention that short-term rentals are about to be forced upon us in the form of an ordinance. I sincerely hope that this doesn't come to pass. Think long and hard about it. Would you want to live next door to one? If you allow this, how will you feel when property values start dropping in every area where short-term rentals exist? What if you one day find yourself living on the same street or next door to one? I am lucky enough to live in a homeowners association whose CC&Rs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions don't allow short-term rentals. And I will be recommending to all others who aren't in such a community to amend their CC&Rs to be more restrictive, which will take precedence over an ordinance. She linked realestate.findlaw.com/owning-a-home/CC&R basics website. When showing homes to prospective buyers, realtors must disclose everything to the buyer. Just as soon as we disclose the presence of a short-term rental on the street, one of two things happen. Either they say, take me to another community, or if they are still interested in the property because it's the perfect house, they say, let's put in a low offer. If that offer isn't accepted by the seller, then they want to keep looking. Please help to keep Dana Point the unique and classy city that it is today. Don't allow short-term rentals in our city. Our residential neighborhoods deserve to continue to be residential only. Respectfully submitted for your consideration by Paula Page. The next is from Jill Fabricant. Good afternoon. I live in Dana Point and would like to lobby for short-term rentals in Dana Point, provided owners of the units live on the premises. This would allow owners to benefit from extra income while also providing continuous on-site management. This allows for any issues to be remedied quickly while providing oversight of the property. In fact, short-term rentals with on-site management are a very safe alternative to hotel stays and also provide tourism revenue to the city. Please do not hesitate to contact me with questions or for discussion. Thank you for your consideration and hopeful resolution of this issue, which has been pending for so long. Jill Fabricant, PhD. This is from Betty Hill, Dana Point resident. Dear Councilman, you can't have it both ways. First, you vote not to allow the public to vote on your STR policy, and then you direct the Planning Commission to hold meetings when the public is left largely uninformed and unable to participate because of the pandemic. In addition, letters from the residents submitted to the commission are not even read during the Planning Commission meeting. I urge you to carefully consider how STRs have impacted cities throughout the country and Orange County. According to an August 6th article in the OC Register, Laguna Beach has asked that the CCC for support to clamp down on short-term rentals. In that article, the CCC staff is quoted as saying, "The Commission has recognized legitimate community concerns over potential adverse impacts associated with vacation rentals with respect to housing stock and affordability, community character, noise, and traffic impacts. Residents of Dana Point are the most important participants in this process, not the STR operators, the property management companies, or the powerful STR industry. This STR policy will forever change the character of Dana Point's residential neighborhoods. The moratorium has been in effect for several years, and rushing to end it during the pandemic and before all the districts are fairly represented on the City Council in 2021 appears suspect and highly irresponsible. Residents deserve better." The next is from Rick and Cindy Fleming, Dana Point residents. Dear Dana Point City Council members, we have used short-term rentals since the 1970s all over the world and generally prefer them to hotels. That is if they are what they were always intended to be, a room or apartment that a homeowner/resident rents on the same property where that homeowner lives. This is nearly always a win-win situation, with us gaining a local perspective and truly experiencing the culture of the place, why we travel in the first place, and the homeowner gaining some income. The experience is nearly always warm and much more enjoyable than a hotel. We become, in effect, friends of the family that host us. Absentee-owned short-term rentals are a completely different experience. They are no more than a hotel with no service. This is a much less friendly experience because neighborhoods are understandably guarded about strangers in their neighborhood. These STRs are clearly business, not a residence. For most people, their biggest investment is their home. They have chosen their home because it is in a residential zone that promises residential neighborhood with only limited home office uses. Zoning tells us what we can do with a property and what we can expect. By purchasing a property in a residential neighborhood, we agree to use it according to the zoning, and the city promises to treat the zone accordingly. Allowing absentee ownership of short-term rentals amounts to putting a hotel in the middle of a residential neighborhood. It is in conflict with the zoning and promises to make all other residents who do not live in that neighborhood. Fair is fair, and I do not advocate for pulling the permits of absentee-owned STRs that already exist, but these permits cannot be transferred in any way, and adjacent neighbors should approve their renewal. Once the property changes hands or their STR permit expires or is lost, it should only be used for STR if the property owner lives on site. We are for property rights. Homeowners in residentially zoned neighborhoods have an absolute right to expect that those neighborhoods remain residential. They also have the absolute right to rent a home or apartment in their home or on the same property as their home for whatever term they deem appropriate for similar use. It says, please include this in the record and ensure that it is read aloud. Thank you, Rick and Cindy Fleming. The next is from John Faulkner. Dear Dana Point City Council members, my wife Margie and I have lived in Dana Point since November 1981, raising 2 daughters and being active parts of the community over the decades. During this time, we have seen much change and growth in the city, with some of it negatively affecting the reasons why we love living here. This brings up the topic of short-term rentals. We are not in favor of there being any short-term rentals in Dana Point, which includes all the individual neighborhoods in the city. The downside of short-term rentals to the full-time residents far outweighs whatever benefits the city may gain by allowing them. Whether it be disrespect for sound ordinances, parking, trash, and crime, there is no upside for them being permitted. The reduction of property values for homes neighboring a short-term rental is also a major concern. We request that short-term rentals be placed on the ballot for the citizens of Dana Point to decide if they are wanted. If short-term rentals are approved by a vote, the citizens should then be a part of the process setting guidelines for how they operate. The voice of the people should be heard on this vital matter, not just the few members of a commission or the city council. Thank you and best regards. The next is from Mark McGinn. Dear Dana Point City Council, as a resident of Dana Point, I am strongly opposed to short-term rentals of any kind. I am a full-time resident of Dana Point, and I do not have the luxury of renting my home out as an investment property. Short-term rentals attract vacationers who do not respect the quiet neighborhoods and can be a loud nuisance. My neighborhood is not protected by a homeowners association and is vulnerable to this type of disturbance. I have property rights also. It is my right to live in a neighborhood that is not negatively affected by transient renters. Although I am opposed to short-term rentals, I respect my fellow residents and their desires. I suggest the matter of short-term rentals be placed before the voters of Dana Point as a referendum. If the voters approve this measure, I will abide by this democratic outcome. Thank you. The next is from Annette Schlatka McGinn. City Council members, this letter is to be read to the Dana Point City Council and entered into the public record as general public comment. Though I oppose short-term rentals, I believe the residents of Dana Point should decide the issue by referendum. The members of City Council and the Planning Commission and the employees of the City of Dana Point will respect the residents' wishes as determined by their vote. I remind you because you often forget that this is our city and you work for us. Thank you for your attention on this important matter. This last comment I have is from Carol Kelly. I am opposed expanding short-term rentals. A survey of 500 residents showed 59% of the people surveyed opposed investor-owned STR. However, the Dana Point City Council insisted outside investors be included in a new pilot program. Why was the city conducting a short-term rental STR public hearing during a pandemic when public access is limited? Did the 4,000 signers of the referendum against the last STR ordinance receive advance notice of the hearing? 3 out of the 4 current voting council members who are making the majority of the decisions on the STR do not live in districts 4 and 5 where the majority of the STRs are located. 3 out of 4 current city council members voted not to put a new STR ordinance on the ballot for voters to approve. Thus, any new ordinance would be approved by council members who do not have the majority of STRs in their district or resident approval. The city staff report states 761 code cases have been initiated for violations of the short-term rental business regulations. 722 of those were for unpermitted STRs. Most owners ceased operation after receiving a notice of violation. However, citations and fines were issued to 141 owners who continued to operate after receiving a notice of violation. And now I'm going to turn it over to the city clerk.
Thank you, Shayna. My first public comment is from Michelle Schumacher. Good evening. I want to thank Joe Mueller for his deep dive into the problems at the TCA Toll Roads, a government agency. The TCA is a redundant, bloated, wasteful government agency. The insider contracts have to stop. We appreciate Mr. Mueller last week speaking out against awarding TCA contract to HNTB-HNTB, the very same firm former TCA CEO switched to a vice president of just a few months ago. The TCA's use of political consultants and funneling money to nonprofits involved in elections needs to stop. This is not an acceptable way to use taxpayers' money. I would suggest the City of Dana Point exits the JPA agreement with the TCA. It is our hope that the district attorney look into the grand jury's report on the TCA. The TCA is a single-purpose agency that was to build the toll road system, now complete and pay down the bonds and go away in 30 years. They have failed on every front, and we will pay for these roads over 5 times by the time the bonds are ever paid down. Thank you, Mr. Mueller, for your diving in and understanding the inappropriate contract awarding practices at the TCA needs to stop. It is our hope that TCA stops funding SCAG, these regional groups that are a hotbed of special interests, such as high-density housing, as witnessed by the RHNA mandates of SCAG. Clearly, the TCA loves this since they collect development fees, which instead of paying down the bonds, go their army of lobbyists. The TCA should not be sending SCAG money that should go to pay down the bonds. It seems that the law firm Nossaman is collecting a lion's share of TCA funds. In July, they were awarded a $4.9 million contract, then a $600,000 in addition to the TCA is asking for another $250,000 for the firm. Crazy and needs to stop. Thank you, Mr. Mueller, for your hard work and getting up to speed with the toll road debacle. Michelle. All right, the next public comment I have is from Mark Bauman. Please vote no on Proposition 16. Californians overwhelmingly reject Proposition 16. A poll of 1,704 California residents released on September 16th by the Public Policy Institute of California showed voters opposed to Prop 16 by huge margins. In fact, over 60% of the people oppose Prop 16. Please join us in defending California's unity and equality. Don't amend our Constitution to allow the state government to discriminate between Californians based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Don't divide us. Vote no on Prop 16. Thank you. The next public comment is from Sue. Hello, this is Sue. I hope to bring your awareness to Prop 16 on November's ballot. Prop 16 legalizes symptomatic discrimination against some racial group of people on college admission, employment, and government contract. Prop 16 was proposed by the State Assembly woman Shirley Weber, aiming to repeal Prop 209, part of California Constitution, which clearly prohibits the state from discriminating against or granting preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Prop 209 is as clear as it is stated. If Prop 16 passes in the November election, it means that we, the Californians, allow the state to discriminate against all of us based on our race, gender, or color, and allow special treatment by the state in college admissions, jobs, and contracting. This is totally unconstitutional and against the American value of equal rights. I hope you could spread the message and people know the danger of Prop 16. Please vote no in November. Thanks, Sue. The next public comment is from Weiji Hang. Subject, stop Prop 16. Dear City Council elected officials, my name is Wee. I'm a concerned resident. On November 3rd, 2020, voters are being presented with a proposition that goes against our city. That is Prop 16. Proposition 16 eliminates language in the California Constitution. Prop 209 that says government cannot discriminate based on race, gender, or race or gender. With Prop 209, Californians are seeking diversities prevailing year over year involving many different aspects. As long as one works hard, one will get lots of opportunities here, which is the reason why California leads and prospers not only in the US, but in the world. I am proud to be a Californian. With Prop 16, it will lead California to a totally opposite direction, a wrong direction. We don't want to go back to the historical dark age of inequality and injustice. Prop 16 is misleading and will inevitably encourage government bureaucracy and corruption, and will cost taxpayers billions of dollars to clean up the foreseeable mess it creates. The country is a great land of opportunity for everyone. The people have said no to SCA 5 in 2014, and we need to say no again this November to stop this racist proposition becoming law. Sincerely, resident Wee Hang. The next public comment is from Bethany Hernandez. Honorable City Council, my name is Bethany Hernandez. I'm writing this to express my strong opposition to Prop 16. Proposition 16 uses race to judge the qualifications of applicants to universities, to jobs, etc. This is the textbook's definition of racism, pure and simple. If it passed, how far would we slide down into this slippery, dangerous slope? What's next? Set racial quarters for elected positions? Set racial quarters for NBA and NFL? Since racial quarters for TV anchors? Please join us and vote no against Prop 16. Thank you for your attention. I think my last public comment is from Peggy Liu. Dear City Council members, city staff, and fellow residents, as the election season is coming up, I would like to draw your attention to Prop 16, which is about governmental preferences. The California Constitution says, A, the state shall not discriminate or grant preferential treatment to any individual or groups based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, public education, or public contracting. Prop 16 will strike out and eliminate this language from the California Constitution. No substitute is provided. However, the summary is being put forth to the voters is this. Quote, allows diversity as a factor in public employment, education, and contracting decisions. Legislative constitutional amendment. Unquote. If diversity is the goal, according to the summary, why eliminate the Constitution that says you cannot benefit one race, gender over the other? Why not propose a proposition that says it? If you specifically benefit one race, gender over the other, isn't that discrimination? Prop 16 not only hurts one or two races, which have higher performances in college admission, but also in the long run, it will hurt everyone and the state because it legalizes discrimination. Our city doesn't need it. California doesn't need it either. On the contrary, Prop 209 guarantees equal opportunity and fair competition, which has made California one of the most prosperous and diversified state in the whole country. Please stick on it. Therefore, please take the time to read everything this year and be informed an informed voter. I urge the city council to take a position to oppose Prop 16. Peggy Lou, a concerned resident. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who submitted public comments tonight, and thank you, Madam Clerk, and to our Deputy Clerk for reading those comments. With that, I will close public comment and move to the next item or next area of the agenda, which is council reports. So we will go around the horn and ask if any council members have anything they would like to report. Councilman Wyatt?
I have turned in my list of meetings to the city clerk and have nothing else to report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've turned in my list of meetings and I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Federico?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have turned in my list of meetings, and I actually would, Mr. City Attorney, could I comment on the short-term rental issue on some of the letters that were sent to the staff Brown Act wise? I know it's not agendized tonight.
You are allowed to make a general brief comment as long as it doesn't turn into too much of a discussion.
Since it seems like no more than one other council member is going to comment tonight, then I think we're good, right? I just wanted to address some of the comments that were written because I very much want this or hope that this process is collaborative and inclusive and that everyone has an open mind when they take part in the Planning Commission's workshops and working through this issue. This council gave guidance to the city staff over, I think, a year ago that said any short-term rental policy would have stronger enforcement and discourage outside investment. And I trust that guidance has been passed on to the Planning Commission. So I hope that the letter writers keep that in mind. Many of the letters talk about two categories of short-term rentals. They talk about homestays, where the owner is present in the dwelling when the home is being rented, part of the home is being rented out. And they talk about absentee owners. What's missing from those are the categories like the owner who owns the home as a primary residence, but may want to go out of town for a number of months in the summer and may not be on site. The draft ordinance that was brought to us back in July excluded a homeowner who had a duplex, but may want to have a permit to short-term rent the other half of the duplex. Even though they were sharing a wall, they couldn't do it because they weren't in the dwelling unit. And it also excludes the very numerous amount of short-term rentals that are owned by Dana Point residents, but it may be a separate address or a separate residence in a different part of town. I think all of those things need to be considered differently for the various spectrum that they fall on a various spectrum with likelihood of nuisance or trouble. And a number of the letters use the word expand. I think that the writers assume that whatever draft ordinance is going to come up is going to have some unlimited number of short-term rentals. And I've not heard anyone on this council ever use the word expand in talking about this. I would assume, my own opinion, that any good ordinance will have a cap on the number of rentals, and it might have different caps for different types of short-term rentals. But I don't think this is going to be the same ordinance that they saw in 2016. I think it's going to be a lot better. And I would hope that proponents and opponents alike be involved in the process and approach it with an open mind rather than make assumptions about what they may have seen on this issue in the past. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I have nothing to report, but I will turn in my list of meetings after this meeting. Okay, with that, that brings us to the public hearing section of the agenda, which is item 14. I will call the item. It's the amendment of the Dana Point Municipal Code, Chapter 5.20, Massage Business Regulations. Madam Assistant City Manager, do we have a staff report?
Yes, Community Development Director Brenda Wisniewski has a brief report. Thank you.
Good evening. Yes, a brief report. The City Council at your last meeting introduced the massage ordinance to allow us to strengthen some of our local permitting authority. Tonight, we're asking for the second reading of that, as well as a resolution to establish a fee of $150. That would be for the annual fee and renewal to cover the enforcement and processing of those permits. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. So before I open the public hearing, I'll go around to council if there are any questions. Councilman Wyatt?
I do not have any questions on this.
Thank you. Councilman Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no issue with item 1. On item 2, I understand what this ordinance is intended to do. However, we do have good operators in town. And during this time of COVID, they've been damaged. They're small business operators, damaged financially is what I mean. They're small business operators. I would make the motion that we suspend this fee for 1 year. And if these operators have no complaints against them, we haven't had any issues. They are a true legitimate operator. We waive that fee. That's my motion on 2.
Okay, so just to be clear, I won't rule it out of order. I'm just saying that at this point, I have to open the public hearing, get public comments, close the public hearing, then I will bring it back
Okay,
and call for a motion. And when that comes,
we'll do it. I'll do it.
I know what your motion is, but I'll ask you to restate it at that time. Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Federico? Okay, and I don't have any questions at this time. So what I'll do is I will open the public hearing and ask Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on it?
We do not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Close the public hearing. I will now, actually, before I do that, what I would like to do, there are 2 recommended items, and I believe, Councilman Miller, your motion went to the second item. So to take care of the first one, I'll separate these out. The first recommended action is that we hold the second reading of the ordinance and adopt it. So I will move recommended action 1 under item 14.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilman Wyatt? No. Councilman Miller? Mayor Pro Tem Federico? Okay, I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to section 2 of the recommended action, or item 14, and I will turn to Councilman Miller.
Okay, so again, during COVID, a lot of these small businesses have been hurt financially. Some of these are legitimate operators, and as a small business, $150 to these smaller businesses could be impactful, especially right now. So I would make the motion that we delay this fee for 1 year, bring it back at that point. And if we have legitimate operators that we know are legitimate, we waive the fee for them.
Okay, I'll second the motion, and we'll open it up to discussion. You probably just gave your discussion, but I'll give you the first
Okay.
opportunity to talk about it. Councilman Wyatt, any discussion?
Yes, I want to get some clarification on Councilmember Miller's proposal. So is your proposal that we waive the fee for renewal of these permits for existing operators that do not have any complaints against them? Or is it that we waive this fee for all renewal or new permits?
My motion is we bring this fee back in a year. In that year's time, we start monitoring these operators. If they're a good operator, you waive the fee. If they are not, you impose the fee. So we'll have to decide what that is within a year, but we need, and we'll talk to staff as well about, how much is this costing us? How much time are we putting into this in terms of enforcement? This is more of, let's wait a year on this. Let's gather some information over the next year on what we should be doing, then we'll revisit it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Federico?
I do understand the interest in not creating another financial barrier. Anecdotally, I had to apply for a business permit in another city nearby to do a volunteer construction project, and I had to pay them $114 for the luxury of doing that, and permit fees drive me crazy. But I would think that if they are bad actors, we're not going to just charge them a permit fee. We're going to revoke their permit, right? They're not going to be around at all. So either we charge a fee or we don't, I think. That would be my only concern with your motion, is that I don't want to issue any permit to a bad operator.
Well, let me clarify. Within the next year, we're going to probably know who the bad actors are and they won't get a permit. Let's wait a year. Let's do our due diligence, find out who it is, and not damage these small legitimate operators.
And that being said, I do have a question for staff. What impact do you think, staff, this would have on the entire ordinance and program not charging a permit fee?
Yeah, thank you. I'll clarify. The ordinance as it's written now, it's a new permit for massage establishments. It states that within 6 months of the effective date of the ordinance, the application shall be filed for all massage establishments in the city. So we'll be receiving applications, and if the interest is to waive those application fees for the first year, we can certainly do that tonight. You can establish the fee so that it would then apply for just year 2. And once applications are received and the permanent application, all fee would be waived, but once the bad actors would be identified through the application process, because that is the benefit of this ordinance. It really allows the sheriff's department to dig in and identify who the players are in applying for these establishments. And again, we have predominantly great operators in town. So the few that we may have that aren't the candidates we want to have in the city will be flagged during the application process. So again, I feel you can adopt the resolution tonight and identify that the application fee shall be waived for the first year. So therefore, in year 2, staff already has the $150 fee that we can apply for future operators and renewals.
Anything else? Did you have the floor? Okay. All right. I listened to that, and actually, after hearing all the comments, I think what I'd like to do is make a substitute motion. I think that accomplishes what we're trying to do here, and I'll tell you why in a second. But instead of passing the fee and then having staff have to spend the time and investigate any complaints and figure out if we're then going to waive it in a year, I think it would be easier and less burden on staff if we just didn't pass the fee. And then, since it's not going to be collected for a year anyway, and then we just revisit the issue in a year. And then we talk to staff at that point, and, we'll at that point see if it's necessary to institute fees for this or not. So I guess my substitute motion would be to, not pass a fee. If that makes so I don't know if I need to put more into the motion than that, or otherwise take no action to accomplish not passing the fee, and just so it's understood after a year we'll come back, I think, and address it. I think that accomplishes what we were trying to do.
I think that's ultimately where I had gotten to. We won't pass the fee this year, so we can take no action on this other than we will revisit it in a year. They still are required to go through the application process to operate, but we won't charge the fee this year.
Could I make a suggestion to where you're trying to go with this?
Please, Mr. City Attorney.
The ordinance is currently drafted in a manner that says there is a fee and that people have to pay it. I think it's got the potential to create just a lot of drafting confusion, and in the future, just a lot of people going, well, what does this all mean if there's not a fee? That combined with the fact that we have a fee resolution that we typically bring back once a year, thereabouts, for updates. It'd be nice to get this fee into that resolution for the future. If you were to effectively adopt the fee tonight, the resolution tonight, but set this fee as 0, it kind of does what you're saying. It makes the ordinance consistent with the resolution. When we bring back the fee resolution in the future, you'll have a chance to decide if you want to, add the fee then or not. And if you're open to my suggestion, I have some language I'd like to suggest for you.
Okay, so I think I understand what you're saying. What I will do then is, so we can discuss, I will withdraw my motion. I will move that we approve the fee schedule, and the fee will be 0. And then do you have language that you wanted to first tell us I need to incorporate into that motion?
Yeah, I would suggest in the
Okay.
resolution, in the operative language that now therefore, I think rather than the language that's in the resolution you have in front of you, you adopt language similar to the following. A fee of, sorry, I'm having trouble reading my own handwriting. A fee is hereby established for applications for massage establishment permits, comma, including applications for permit renewals in the following amount, colon, 0. Then in the future, when we have the fee resolution that comes forward, it can be some other dollar amount.
Okay, well, then that is my motion. I think everyone probably understands what the motion is. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I don't have any further discussion on it, but Councilman Wyatt?
So I have a question about, first I want to make clear, we just passed resolution 1, action 1. That resolution that we just passed, that ordinance we just passed, has a fee in it.
It references that the fee established by the city council adopted by resolution does not identify actually a fee.
It references a fee, but it doesn't identify the amount.
That's correct.
So now we're looking to identify the amount.
That's correct.
Okay, so we don't want to change that ordinance because then you have to bring it back for first reading again, correct?
Correct.
So we want to make sure we don't do that. But my question is, so how prevalent in our various businesses are us have fees that must be paid when you license the business here and renew those licenses? Is that a common practice?
Yes, our fees are reflective of the cost of doing business.
Right, across all the various small businesses we have in town.
We don't have business licenses. We don't have,
But we do have
taxes
fees for,
we have fees for building permits, certificate of occupancies, but we do not have business license
Right.
fees.
so I'm just trying to understand whether we're carving out a special exception for massage parlors that differs from what we would normally do for other businesses.
There really
or-
isn't anything similar to for other businesses. This is unique to this type of operation.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything? Councilman Miller, Mayor Pro Tem Federico? Okay, with that, I'll call for the vote. I'll call for a electronic vote, since we don't do that very often. On my motion, yes. Okay. That passes 3-1 with Councilman Wyatt in dissent. Okay. That brings us to unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. And now we are into new business. Item 15, a statue commission for Waterman's Plaza honoring Joyce Hoffman. Madam Assistant City Manager, do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you. Joyce Hoffman started surfing around the age of 12 when her family moved to Beach Road into the now iconic Hoffman House. Through the 60s, Hoffman dominated women's surfing. She won 3 United States Surfing Championships in a row and took a 4th title in 1971. She also won the women's surfing title in 66 and 67, but it wasn't just the championships she won that cemented her as a legacy surfer. She also raised the bar of women's surfing to show that it could be on par with the men. Hoffman was named the LA Times Woman of the Year in 1965. Sports Illustrated profiled her, and she landed on the cover of Life magazine. Hobie even gave her her own signature surfboard model, the first ever for a female surfer. Tonight, the Arts and Culture Commission is recommending that the City Council consider contracting with Bill Linebrook to create the next statue for Waterman's Plaza, Joyce Hoffman. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I believe we have a couple of public comments.
I do, Mr. Mayor. The first public comment is from Janie Robb. Since I'm out of town until Wednesday, I would like to take this opportunity to convey my thoughts to you as chair of the Arts and Culture Commission. Last year, the city asked us if we would help with the Surfing Foundation's project at Waterman's Park regarding sculptures. Since Joyce Hoffman was the first international women champion surfer, the commission at our last meeting voted to have her be our 4th sculpture in our beautiful park at the entrance of our gorgeous city. I know Joyce, and she is out of town, and she's excited and honored to be included in this exhibit. Thank you for your consideration at this time. Janie Robb, Chair of the Arts and Culture Commission. The second comment is from Joyce Hoffman regarding the statue. I have been notified at Tuesday's City Council meeting, the Arts and Culture Commission will be recommending that the council approve a statue of me to be included in the Waterman's Plaza. I would have loved to attend the meeting, but will be out of the area. Therefore, I would like to submit this email in reference to item 15 of the City Council agenda on Tuesday, October 6th. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to the Arts and Culture Commission for recommending to the City Council that I be included in the Waterman's Plaza. I consider this an amazing honor and I'm most appreciative. I eagerly look forward to working with the sculptor Bill Linebrook, who grew up on the beach road as did I. He has done a fabulous job of creating the life-size sculptures of some of the surfing legends that are currently in the plaza. The plaza is an amazing addition to the city of Dana Point, and everyone involved should be proud. Thank you for your consideration, Joyce Hoffman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So with that, I will close public comment. I will bring it back to the council. I'd like to move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. So we'll go around for any discussion that we have on. Councilman Wyatt?
No, I think it's, I'm delighted that this has come up. So I'm very much in support of this. I think it's terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this was something that our former city manager, Mr. Denny, and I were talking about last year, and how Waterman's Plaza should move forward. And it's something that I had a chance to meet Ms. Hoffman. Probably get mad if I called her Ms. Hoffman, so I'll say Joyce, at the dedication of the Bruce Brown statue. And what a fantastic person. I mean, everything she did for the surfing industry, showing, women are just as important in sports as men are. They're fantastic to watch surf. I watched some professional women surf, and I'm like, I could never do that. Even when I was younger and in better shape, there's no way I could do what they're doing. And it's really exciting for me that we have somebody that we can honor like that from our city. It's time. I'm really, really excited to have this done. I'm so happy that the Arts and Culture Commission decided that this should be the next statue. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Federico?
No, I'll just echo the comments of my colleagues. We're lucky to have Joyce as a resident of Dana Point, and we're lucky to be able to honor her. And thanks to the commission for their hard work to get it done.
Thank you very much. And of course, I echo those comments. I mean, we are always very proud of the people that are from Dana Point and are trailblazers or do great things. So, thank you, Joyce. We're all, I think, very enthusiastic about approving this item. So with that, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Of course, there are none, so that passes unanimously. Okay. That now brings us to the staff reports section of the agenda. I will turn first to our Assistant City Manager, Ms. Renders. Anything to report?
I do have a few announcements tonight. I wanted to give a shout out to the Recreation Division. They hosted a free outdoor socially distanced lunch for our seniors last week, and they had a Jack Brand country duo and bingo, and it was really well received. And I think it was nice to get our seniors back in the vicinity of the community center with some activities. So I just really appreciate the efforts by Sherry, Monique, and team. We have a couple of fall events as well I'd like to highlight. We're having a porch decorating contest. We're having a Furry Friends Halloween costume contest, a great pumpkin decorating contest, and a spooktacular movie night on October 24th. So look for all those updates on social media. And we're also planning a spooky treat trolley on Friday the 30th, where our trolley will be headed out to our parks and making visits, giving out candy for kids to come out in their costumes. So more to come on that. But my last announcement is that looking even further than Halloween, Turkey Trot registration is open. It's run the race in your place. So don't forget to participate in that tradition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Attorney.
I have nothing this evening, although I can't help but to comment on the Turkey Trot. I'm thinking I could win this year if I'm running by myself at home.
Well, good luck. And okay, that brings us to the adjournment. The next regular meeting of the City Council will be October 20th, 2020 at 5 p.m. right here in the City Council chamber. With that, we are adjourned.